The explosive hook. Headline: A hot-tempered legend versus Nadal. The result stunned the world. Have you ever wondered what happens when a notoriously hot-tempered player, a two-time Grand Slam champion, goes up against the most unbeatable defensive machine in tennis history? And even more than that, what happens when that man is Marat Safin, the Russian legend who once made the entire ATP Tour tremble with his rages? Today, we are going back in time to the 2007 Canada Masters, the setting for one of the strangest matches in Rafael Nadal's career. This isn't just tennis. This is a classic psychological lesson on how emotions can destroy a genius. Imagine you are Marat Safin. You are 6 feet 4 inches. You serve at 200 kilometers per hour, and your forehand crushes everything in its path. You defeated Pete Sampras in the U.S. Open final at age 20. You were once world number 1. But now, you are standing across from a 21-year-old Spanish kid that every player knows one thing about: he will never give up. And here's the crazy part. Safin had no idea what kind of psychological trap Nadal had prepared for him. A trap that even the greatest champions could not escape. Before revealing the details, if you love tennis drama like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel Pro Tennis 360 so you don't miss our deep dives into match psychology and legendary moments of the tennis world. We bring perspectives you won't find anywhere else, only here. Now, join me as I peel back every detail of this match. Because believe me, the ending will make you exclaim, "Unbelievable." The question is, could a hot-headed genius like Safin control his emotions against the Spanish wall Rafael Nadal? Or would he destroy himself right on the court? Let's find out. Who is Marat Safin, the angry genius? Headline: Marat Safin, the genius with the biggest ego in tennis history. Before diving into the match, you need to understand one thing. Marat Safin was not an ordinary player. He was a living paradox, both a genius and self-destructive. Safin was born in 1980 in Moscow, Russia. 6 feet 4 inches tall, bulging muscles, a sledgehammer-like forehand, and a 210 kilometers per hour serve. Physically, he was a monster. In 2000, at age 20, Safin crushed Pete Sampras 6-4, 6-3, 6-3 at the U.S. Open final, one of the most impressive victories in Grand Slam history. The press called him the future of tennis. In 2005, he won the Australian Open after overcoming Roger Federer in the semi-finals in a classic 5-set match. 2 Grand Slams. Former world number 1. All proved that Safin had talent in the all-time top 5. But here was the problem. Safin had a fatal flaw: his ego and uncontrollable anger. He smashed more rackets than any other player in ATP history. In some matches, he smashed up to 4 rackets. Once, he punched a hole in a locker room cabinet. At times, he shouted at his coaching staff so much that he was fined. And here is a famous quote from Safin himself: "Sometimes I feel like I'm fighting myself more than my opponent." That was his Achilles heel. Because when you face Rafael Nadal, a person specialized in exploiting psychological weaknesses, you are inviting trouble upon yourself. And in 2007, at the Canada Masters, Nadal did exactly that. Now imagine you are Safin. You know who Nadal is, the Spanish kid with long hair, pirate capris, and topspin forehands at 4,000 revolutions per minute. But this was the first time the two of you had met. Safin had never faced Nadal before. And that was the biggest mistake. Because Safin did not know that Nadal doesn't just play tennis. He plays psychological warfare. Let's be real. Safin thought he could hit the ball harder, serve faster, and overwhelm Nadal with pure power. But Nadal? He had prepared a completely different plan. A plan that Safin would never forget. Canada Masters 2007. The first battle between two opposite styles. Canada Masters 2007, Round 2. Montreal. Hard court. A packed crowd. Safin versus Nadal for the first time in their careers. On paper, this was an interesting matchup. Safin, the powerful attacker, incredible serve speed, a sledgehammer forehand. Nadal, the resilient defender, extreme topspin forehand, running for balls like he never tires. Two completely opposite styles. One person wants to end points fast. One person wants to extend the rally until the opponent collapses. And here is something very few people realize. Safin hated the style of long rallies. He liked to play fast and finish cleanly. The longer it went, the more Safin lost his patience. And when Safin loses patience, he starts taking risks. And when taking risks, unforced errors start to increase. Did Nadal know this? Perhaps not explicitly. But Nadal's natural style, constant running, extending rallies, hitting into the backhand, was exactly Safin's kryptonite. The match began. Safin served first. An ace on the very first point. 131 miles per hour, 210 kilometers per hour. The crowd cheered. Safin smiled confidently. But pay attention to the second point. Nadal returned the serve long and deep into Safin's backhand corner. Safin hit a forehand slice cross-court. Nadal ran to it, hit a topspin forehand into Safin's backhand. Safin hit a backhand to the middle of the court. Nadal hit a deep forehand back. Safin was forced to retreat deep behind the baseline, playing a defensive backhand slice. Nadal moved up and hit a forehand winner into the corner. A 15-ball rally. Nadal won the point. And that was exactly when you saw the first expression on Safin's face. A small grimace. Not big, but it had appeared. Because Safin had just realized, this jerk isn't going to let me play fast. Set 1 continued. Safin served well, for aces in his first 2 service games. But every time Nadal served, Safin had to work extremely hard. Every point lasted 10 to 15 balls. Every rally, Safin had to run from one corner to the other. And here is what Nadal does brilliantly. He never gives Safin a comfortable hitting rhythm. Every time Safin wanted to step into the court to hit a forehand winner, Nadal hit to the backhand. Every time Safin wanted to hit down the line, Nadal hit cross-court. Every time Safin moved to the net, Nadal hit a lob or a passing shot. It was an art. And Safin? He started to get irritated. Set 1. When Nadal began to play with Safin's psychology. This is when things started to get interesting. Game 5 of Set 1. Nadal is leading 3-2. Safin is serving to hold the game. First point, an 18-ball rally. Safin has to run from the left corner to the right corner, backhand slice, topspin forehand, backhand again, until finally he hits a forehand long. 15-0 for Nadal. Safin stands at the baseline, looks down at the ground, and shakes his head. He says something to himself. Expression? Frustrated. Second point. Safin serves hard, 128 miles per hour. Nadal returns deep into the backhand corner. Safin backhands cross-court. Nadal forehands into the backhand again. Safin backhands down the line. Beautiful. Nadal runs to it, hits a forehand defensive lob. Safin moves up, overhead smash. But the ball goes out. 15-15. Safin slams his racket onto the court. A thud echoes. The umpire warns, code violation, racket abuse. The crowd goes silent. And here is when Nadal does something extremely smart. He says nothing, doesn't look at Safin, just walks to the baseline and prepares for the next point. That is a classic psychological tactic. Don't react to the opponent's emotions. Just continue playing normally. Let them destroy themselves. And Safin? He got even more annoyed. Third point. Safin serves, double fault. 15-30. Safin turns his back, walks toward the chair, and takes a towel to wipe his face. But you can see, his hands are trembling slightly. Not from fatigue, but from anger. Fourth point. A 22-ball rally. Finally, Safin hits a backhand winner down the line. 30-30. Safin screams, "Come on." But it wasn't joy. It was a release of tension. Here's the thing. When a player starts screaming, "Come on," after every simple point won, it's a sign they are fighting against themselves, not the opponent. And Nadal? He was completely aware of that. The game ended 5-3 for Nadal. Safin held his game, but it took 8 minutes for one service game. Normally, Safin service games only took 2 to 3 minutes. Nadal was slowing down the tempo, extending everything. grinding Safin down point by point. And this tactic? Brutal. The stalemate, when Safin began to collapse from within. Set 1, Game 9. Nadal leads 5-4. Safin serves to stay in the set. And this is when you see the difference between the two most clearly. Nadal is at the baseline, hopping ready. Expression? Absolute focus. Eyes not leaving the ball. Safin is at the service line, looking up at the sky, sighing, turning his back, walking a circle, coming back. Expression? Stressed. First point. Safin serves out. Second serve. Nadal returns deep, a 12-ball rally. Safin hits a forehand into the net. 0-15. Safin looks down at his racket, shakes his head. Second point. Safin serves hard, ace. He screams, "Let's go." But his voice sounds desperate. 15-15. Third point. A 20-ball rally. Nadal runs from corner to corner like he never tires. Every ball Safin hits, Nadal returns it. Finally, Safin tries to hit a forehand winner down the line, but the ball lands 10 centimeters long. 15-30. And this is the moment you see Safin truly snap. He turns his back, walks toward the fence, and slams his racket onto the ground with all his power. The racket bounces. He slams it again, a third time. The racket breaks in half. The strings snap everywhere. The umpire stands up. Code violation, racket abuse. Point penalty. 15-40. The crowd sighs. Nadal? Silent. Standing at the baseline. Not looking at Safin. Just waiting. And that is exactly the cruel beauty of Nadal. He doesn't need to do anything. Just exist, and the opponent will self-destruct. Safin takes a new racket, serves. Double fault. Break point for Nadal. 5-5. Next game, Nadal holds easily. 6-5. Game 12. Safin serves to stay in the set. But you can see, he has run out of mental energy. Every point, he has to fight himself. Nadal breaks. 7-5. Set 1 to Nadal. Set 1 duration, 1 hour 5 minutes. And here is a crazy stat. Safin hit 18 winners, but also had 24 unforced errors. Nadal? 12 winners, only 8 unforced errors. Safin is defeating himself. Set 2, the total collapse of a genius. If set 1 was about emotional control, then set 2 was a complete collapse. Set 2 begins. Safin sits in his chair, towel over his head, looking at the ground. He doesn't look at his coach. Doesn't talk to anyone. Just sits still. That is the sign of someone who has mentally checked out. First game of set 2. Nadal serves. Safin returns feebly. A short rally. Nadal wins the point. Safin doesn't even try to run for the ball. An easy hold for Nadal. 1-0. Game 2. Safin serves. First serve in, but not as hard as set 1. Nadal returns deep. An 8-ball rally. Safin hits a forehand out. 0-15. Second serve. Double fault. 0-30. Next. Nadal return winner. 0-40. Triple break point. Safin stands at the service line, looks down at the tennis ball, and you can see in his eyes, he has given up from the inside. Serve. Nadal return. A 3-ball rally. Safin hits into the net. Break for Nadal. 2-0. And from here on, the match was no longer tennis. It became a public execution. Game 3. Nadal holds. 3-0. Game 4. Safin serves. Another break for Nadal. 4-0. Game 5. Nadal holds. 5-0. In just 15 minutes, Nadal led 5-0. Safin won exactly 2 points in the first 5 games. And here is the strange thing. Safin was no longer angry. He was just empty, like a man who has accepted his fate. Game 6. Safin serves to avoid the donut, losing 6-0. He tries a little, holds the game. 5-1. The crowd applauds, not because Safin is playing well, but because they feel sorry for him. Game 7. Nadal serves for the match. Safin doesn't even try. For points pass like water. 6-1. The match ends. Total time, 1 hour 52 minutes. Nadal wins 7-5, 6-1. Brutal. Psychological analysis. Why did Safin collapse like that? Now let's pause the tennis and talk about psychology. Because this was not a match about technique. This was a match about mental toughness. Safin had all the physical abilities to beat Nadal. Stronger serve. Stronger forehand. Taller. Longer reach. Purely physically, Safin had the advantage. But tennis is not just physical. There is a famous quote by Brad Gilbert, former coach of Andre Agassi. Tennis is 90% mental, and the other 10% is mental too. And Safin? He is a classic example of someone with 10 out of 10 talent, but a mental game of only 4/10. And Nadal? Mental game 11 out of 10. Let's analyze why Safin collapsed. Fatal flaw. Emotional volatility. Safin could not control his emotions. Every time he lost a point, he got angry. Every time he got angry, he smashed a racket. Every time he smashed a racket, he lost mental energy. Every time he lost mental energy, he played worse. And the cycle continued. That is a classic downward spiral. Did Nadal know this? He didn't need to know specifically. But Nadal's playing style, extending rallies, hitting into the weakness, Safin's backhand, never giving a comfortable rhythm, automatically triggered Safin's psychological weakness. Patience versus impatience. Nadal is the most patient person in tennis history. He is willing to hit 30 balls a rally if necessary. He never rushes. Safin? The exact opposite. He wants to end the point in 5 balls. If not, he starts taking risks. And when you take risks against Nadal, you lose. The trap of expectations. Safin expected he would win with power. When he couldn't win, he began to doubt himself. Why can't I smash the ball past this kid? And when you start doubting yourself, game over. Here's the brutal truth. Nadal didn't need to defeat Safin. Safin defeated himself. And that is the highest art of Nadal. Aftermath. What did Safin say after the match? After the match, reporters interviewed Safin. A reporter asked, Marat, how do you feel about the match today? Safin looked down, was silent for a few seconds, then said, sometimes I feel like I'm fighting myself more than my opponent. And that quote summarizes everything. Safin didn't lose because Nadal was too strong. He lost because he could not control himself. Another reporter asked, what do you think was your biggest problem today? Safin laughed bitterly. My biggest problem? My head. Always my head. That is the most honest admission an athlete can say. And the funny thing? Safin knew his problem. He knew it clearly. But he couldn't fix it. That is the tragedy of Marat Safin, a genius imprisoned within his own emotions. Now let's be real. What did Nadal say after the match? A reporter asked Nadal, did you see Safin lose his cool? Nadal replied, in a very Nadal way, I just tried to play my game. I tried to make him play long rallies. And I think it worked. Simple, direct, honest. No drama. No victory declarations. Just, I did my job. And that is exactly the difference between a champion and talent. Talent, Safin, relies on ability. Champion, Nadal, relies on consistency and mental strength. Safin could beat Federer on a good day, but he could not beat himself. The bigger lesson, what does this match represent? Now, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. This match wasn't just Safin versus Nadal. This is a psychological lesson applicable to every field in life. This isn't just about tennis. This is about self-control, emotional intelligence, and the ability to stay composed under pressure. Think about it this way. You can be the smartest person in the room. You can have the best skills. You can have all the tools for success. But if you cannot control your emotions, you will destroy yourself. Safin is the perfect example. He had the talent to be the GOAT, greatest of all time. But he only won 2 Grand Slams. Why? Because he couldn't control himself. And Nadal? 22 Grand Slam. Not because he has the strongest forehand. Many people are stronger. Not because he has the best serve. His serve is only 190 kilometers per hour average. But because he has the strongest mental toughness. Let me tell you something. In life, Emotional control is a superpower. People with good emotional control will make better decisions, maintain consistency for longer, overcome difficulties faster, not self-sabotage their own opportunities. People who cannot control their emotions, like Safin, will make impulsive decisions, give up when facing difficulties, create more problems for themselves, waste their own potential. And here is the question for you. Are you Safin or Nadal? When pressure comes, do you stay calm? Or do you smash the racket? When things don't go your way, are you patient? Or do you give up? This match is a mirror for all of us. Conclusion. Lessons from the legends Safin and Nadal. So we have reached the end of the journey. From Safin's initial confidence, to the complete collapse in set 2, to the psychological lesson we can all apply. Marat Safin is one of the most talented players in history. But he is also a prime example that talent is not enough if you lack emotional control. Rafael Nadal is not the strongest, fastest, or has the most beautiful technique. But he is the most patient, most resilient, and has the best emotional control. And ultimately, that is the deciding factor. Here's the final takeaway. Talent gets you to the game. Mental toughness wins the game. Safin has talent. Nadal has both. And if you love deep analyses of match psychology like this, behind-the-scenes stories that no one tells, and life lessons from tennis, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel Pro Tennis 360. We don't just talk about tennis. We talk about the people behind every shot, the strategy behind every victory, and lessons you can apply immediately to your life. Hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and be a part of a true tennis-loving community. One last question for you. In life, will you choose to be Safin, the self-destructing genius, or Nadal, the resilient warrior? Drop your answer in the comments. Thank you for following. See you in the next video. And remember, stay mentally strong, stay focused, and never let emotions destroy your potential. Pro Tennis 360, where champions are analyzed.